let's talk about what you should know about tomato hornworms as you move through your tomato gardening season. So the first thing to know is this. Come on out and start looking for hornworms and signs of hornworms early in the season, even when your plants are fairly small like this. You know, these worms, they overwinter. They're actually a caterpillar. They overwinter in the soil, and then they hatch out and they become the sphinx moth, a hawk moth, that then lays eggs and feeds on your tomato plants. So, you know, you'll start to see them usually about midsummer, kind of usually around when you get tomatoes forming on your plants. And it's a good idea to just start keeping an eye out for them all season long. So, you know, what are you looking for? Well, you're looking for droppings, which will be about kind of a cylindrical pellet in shape. The hornworms start out small, but they grow to be very large, about 4 inches, about the size of a finger. And by the time they're getting, you know, about half to their full size, usually you have no trouble seeing the fecal pellets on the plants. So another thing to know is that the hornworms themselves, they're not harmful. They're not going to bite you. They're nothing like that. They do feel pretty gross to, you know, touch and pull off, but there's nothing harmful about them. In their adult stage, the hawk moth, they are actually a fairly good pollinator, not as important, not as good as honeybees or other important pollinators, but they do serve a purpose. They have a long proboscis that is able to feed in deep flowers, and they're especially good for night blooming plants because, you know, they're active when at night. The moths are. The caterpillars will be active during the day and also at night, but the moths are active at night, so they're able to pollinate night blooming plants that aren't open during the day for the daytime pollinators to get to. So those are a few things worth knowing. Now, another thing to know is that these caterpillars will eat up to 4 times their body weight in plant foliage per day, and they will also eat the fruit. So if you have, you know, green fruit, like I have green tomatoes on here, they'll eat those. They might even eat ripe fruit. It's just given their life stage, you usually will see them more during the green ripening phases. And they'll come out first when you still usually have unripe tomatoes on the plant. So what you want to look for is look for areas on your plant that will become kind of what we say called skeletonized. That means that, like, take this branch for instance, the leaf portion itself would be eaten away, usually from the outside in. They can just start in the middle of one. They can start wherever they want. But you would come and you would find that this whole branch would just be nothing but the ribs here, the stem and then the leaf rib. And that's what you would be left with. And then you might start seeing fruit that are bitten into or completely eaten away. That's a problem because, you know, those fruits are going to either scar really badly or rot completely. So they're definitely going to impact the yield in your tomato patch. So then you need to think control. The number one recommended way to deal with these is actually just to hand pick them off. Come down here with a jar of soapy water and, you know, search for the worms. The easiest way to find them is look for those freshest, moist, dark green pellets. You know, if you're seeing other pellets that are like darker in color, like dark brown or black, they're usually a little older. You can look there as well. But if you have moist areas of pellets, they're probably feeding right in that area or recently have been. So if you kind of start tracing back from that, that's a way to find them. You can also come out at night with a black light in the dark and shine that, because the hornworms will fluoresce. They'll glow kind of a whitish green to purple color, and they'll show up a lot better at night. During the day, they have excellent camouflage and they can look an awful lot like a stem. You may find them on the top, but you'll often find them on the bottom of the ribs, and they can blend in just really, really easily. They have some white kind of hash marks on their back that also kind of mimic the ribs of the leaves. So excellent camouflage. They can be hard to find during the day, but if you trace back from where you're seeing signs, you can usually find a good number of them and get control. And again, all the experts say that the best way to deal with them is just pick them off by hand and then drop them in some soapy water or something to kill them. Some people will actually choose to relocate them because they do turn into that pollinating hawk moth. So again, that's a personal choice. It's going to be based a lot on how many tomato plants you have, how much damage you can kind of tolerate, if you can tolerate any damage at all. You do also have some product options that would include Bacillus thuringiensis, BT, and BT is your number one choice as far as products go, insecticide products go. That is specifically targeted to worm and caterpillar type insects in the larval stages, and so it won't harm bees and flying pollinators. So that's a really good one. Neem oil is also effective, but you do have to take some care. If you have blossoms on your tomatoes, you want to make sure that you're not spraying when the bees are active, because if the neem oil gets on the bees, it will kill them. And there's some potential that they could be collecting pollen, and there's a little bit of question there about how badly that impacts them, but suffice it to say that it's just a good idea not to have bees coming in contact with the neem. So we have some more information and options in the article. I hope you'll read it and I hope it's helpful to you, but this is a primer on this, just to know that most of us that are growing tomatoes are going to deal with hornworms at some time. They are not the end of the world. They won't hurt you, but you probably will want to use a pair of gloves if you are going to pull them off. They actually can hold on really strong, and they just don't feel great touching them. Final thing to mention is that tomatoes are not the only valued garden plants that hornworms will eat. They will go for anything that's in the nightshade family. You're usually going to find them on the tomatoes. They like the tomatoes the best. So if they have the option, usually you'll find them on there. And I've grown for many years tomatoes and peppers side by side and never had them in the peppers. But peppers are a host plant for hornworms. And just last year I did have where one went over to the pepper. And obviously, this is a still growing tomato plant. But if we come over to here, I have some bell pepper plants. And if you think about the size difference between the two, the damage that it can do to something like a pepper plant, it really can take out an adult hornworm can take out a pepper plant literally overnight. So when you're looking for signs, look for them in the pepper plants as well. I am going through this pepper plant to find out what it is that's doing this damage. I did notice I have some flea beetles in the garden yesterday, so I'm thinking that it's probably more likely that, but I will definitely be inspecting even more closely for signs that maybe we have some hornworms starting to become active in here. And then just get rid of them, deal with them, or if you want to relocate them. What are you going to relocate them to? You could relocate them to something like a pepper plant, or also eggplants are another host plant. Potatoes are a host plant. Again, you may or may not see them on them if there are tomatoes available, but it is possible. And there are also weeds in the nightshade family, including Jimson weed and horse nettle, that the worms can and will feed upon. So if you're looking for a relocation as opposed to an elimination option, that's an option. Maybe move it over the weeds. But also, you want to keep those weeds out of your patch so that you're not creating another invitation to hawk moths to lay in your patch. Last thing to know, if you find hornworms and they have the little white kind of cylindrical capsules poking out of their back, that is actually a parasitic wasp, the braconid wasp, and they're actually a great friend to gardeners. They parasitize a lot of pests, including the tomato hornworms, and once they're on that back, that tomato hornworm is done for. Its time damaging your garden is limited anyway, so it's best just to let it go and complete its life cycle and create a whole nother herd, so to speak, of braconid wasps that can help you. So good luck with your tomatoes, and I hope you have a great summer.